Section 13.3 is about truth in lending, and we have two objectives to cover. One is to determine the annual percentage rate for different types of loans, and then we're going to calculate so-called unearned interest. The annual percentage rate, or APR, is a very, very important part of the Consumer Credit Protection Act, which was passed, almost over 50 years ago. That's known as the Truth in Lending Act. And so the law addresses two major issues. How can we tell the true annual interest rate a lender is charging, and how much of the finance charge are we entitled to save if we decide to pay off a loan sooner than originally scheduled? And especially the first point will be very interesting. So what Truth in Lending does, it standardizes the so-called true annual rate or annual percentage rate, commonly denoted as APR. So all sellers must disclose the APR when asked, and written contracts must state the APR in all cases. And this enables a borrower to more easily compare the true costs of different loans. And so there's a table 5 on page 751, which we'll be using for the next example. And the example that we are using here is to find the APR for an add-on loan. And we had a previous example where someone bought some furniture for $5,400 and paid $1,100 down, and then agreed to pay the balance at a 5% add-on rate for 2 years. So the question is, what is the APR for her loan? So when we look at the total amount, was $5,400 minus $1,100 down payment. That means $4,300 is being financed. So the interest on the $4,300 would be P, or 4,300, times the interest rate of 5%, 0.05, times 2 years, and that's equal to $430. So the next thing is we need to determine the finance charge per $100. So finance charge per $100, which is simply $430, which is a finance charge, and divided by the amount financed of $4,300 times 100, because we want to pay $100, so that is equal to 10. Now we look at the table on page 751, and so we go in the left column and look for the row that begins with 24, because it's for 2 years or 24 payments, and we go over to the right until we find $10. But as you see, there is no $10, but there is 9.64, and 10.19. Now 10.19 is closer to 10, and now when you look up, you find the APR correspondingly as 9.5%. In other words, a 5% add-on rate is in actuality equivalent to an APR of 9.5%, the true interest rate. And that is why knowing the APR is so important, because a 5% add-on rate, that sounds pretty harmless, but what's really going on is that person is paying 9.5% APR. So I hope you learned something from this example, that you would always look at the APR and not just like an add-on rate, which is quite common for this type of loan, even for automobile loans, etc. But for furniture, automobiles, appliances, and so on. So always ask for the APR. That gives you a much better idea how much you're really getting charged. Next is the topic of unearned interest, and that is when a borrower decides to pay off an installment loan earlier than originally scheduled. In this case, the lender has not really earned the full finance charge originally disclosed. In such cases, the amount by which the original finance charge is reduced is called unearned interest. And there'll be two methods called the actuarial method and the rule of 78. And the truth in lending requires that the method for calculating this refund or finance charge be disclosed at the time the loan is initiated. Whichever method is used, the borrower may not, in fact, save all of the unearned interest, since the lender is entitled to impose an early payment penalty or prepayment penalty to recover certain costs. A lender's intention to impose such a penalty, in case of early payment, also must be disclosed at initiation of the loan. So you want to know what unearned interest is about for a particular loan you may be taking out, and if there's an early payment penalty for doing that, for paying off the loan early. And actually, the rule of 78 was developed a long time ago when we didn't really have calculators and computers. The actuarial method is really the more accurate one. But, again, doing it manually, takes a lot longer. But of course, today with computers nowadays, it's no problem at all. So that's what, in most cases, people use the actuarial method. The rule of 78 is a little bit faster, but we'll discuss it briefly. So let's look at the actuarial method, and let's say you have an installment loan requiring monthly payments, and it's paid off earlier than originally scheduled. R would be the regular monthly payment, K is the remaining number of scheduled payments after your current payment, and H is a finance charge for $100, corresponding to a loan with the same APR and K monthly payments. So we already determined how to compute the finance charge per $100. But here is then the formula for the unearned interest. U equals K times R times H divided by 100 plus H. And then knowing what U is, the unearned interest, then we can calculate the payoff amount, and that's the next formula. So the payoff amount is much easier to calculate then. Again, installment loan requiring regular monthly payments R can be paid off early, along with the current payment. So if the original loan had K additional payments scheduled after the current payment, and the unearned interest is U, then disregarding any possible prepayment penalty, the payoff amount is equal to K plus 1 times R minus U, the unearned interest. Example 3, finding early payoff amount using the actuarial method. Shanice got an unexpected pay raise and wanted to pay off her car loan from example 2 at the end of 3 years rather than paying for 4 years as originally agreed. A, find the unearned interest, the amount she will save by retiring the loan early, and B, find the payoff amount. In other words, the amount required to pay off the loan at the end of 3 years. So from example number 2, we had that Shanice owed $14,652 on her car, and she had monthly payments of $340.76. So R equals $340.76, and the APR was 5.5%. And the remaining number of payments was 48 minus 36, or 12. So in other words, K the number of remaining scheduled payments is equal to 12. R is to 346.70, and K is equal to 12. Now we need to know what H is, the amount financed per $100. So the way we do that is, since we know the APR and we know the number of payments, we go to table 5 and go on the left side for n equals 12. Payments left, so it is table 5. That's for table 5. In the left-hand column, we go n equals 12. And then on top, we go to an APR of 5.5%. And when we look down at N12 and APR of 5.5%, we find that this would be equal to $3. So in other words, H equals $3. If you go to table 5 with this information. So this is now in the table, 3.0. So now we have the formula, the unearned interest equals the formula KR, K times R, times H divided by 100 plus H. So then in this particular case, that equals 12. K equals 12 times 340.76. 340.76, and we can put that in parentheses, times 3 divided by 100 plus 3, and that's equal to 119.10. So in other words, that's the amount of unearned interest that she'll get for paying off the loan early. That's how much she saves by paying off the loan early. So for A, the answer is 119.10. Now for B, for the payoff amount, remember the payoff amount? Payoff amount is equal to K plus 1 times R minus U. In other words, that's equal to 12 plus 1 times 340.76, 340.76 minus 119.10. You pay off the unearned interest amount, and that's equal to $4,310. Move it over, and 78 cents. So then the answer for B is equal to 4,310.78. So the only tricky thing in this case was for the A part to find out what is the amount financed per 100. And again, by knowing what n is equal to, 12 in this case, the number of payments, and the APR, since we know that from example number 2, 5.5, we can then look in the table and find out that's equal to $3 per $100 financed. here's the formula for the rule of 78, unearned interest. For closed-end loan requiring monthly payments, which is paid off earlier than originally scheduled, let F equal be the original finance charge and the number of payments originally scheduled, and K is the remaining number of scheduled payments after current payment. And then the unearned interest, U, is calculated in the following way. K times K plus 1 divided by N times N plus 1 times F. Again, that's the original finance charge. So in example 4, let's find the early payoff amount using the rule of 78 and also the unearned interest. So in this case, we need to find out what the original finance charge is. And so the way we do that is we compute the number of payments times the 48 payments times 340 times 76 minus the amount financed, which was 14,652, and that's equal to 1,704.28. 48 rather. So that's F. Now in this case, again, we know that K is equal to 12, the remaining number of payments, and N was equal to 48. So then, using the formula here, U, the unearned interest, is equal to 12 times 12 plus 1 divided by 48. Okay, so U is equal to 12 times 12 plus 1 divided by 48 times 48 plus 1 times F, which is 1,704.48 finance charge. So in this case then, U equals $113.05. Now remember, in the actuarial method, we found use of actuarial, the amount was 119.10. So using the rule of 78 method, she would pay $6.05 less. So $6.05 less compared to using the actuarial method. So for the A part then, our answer is 113.05. That would be the unearned interest. And now when we compute the payoff amount, the payoff amount would be the B part. So that would be equal to payoff amount equal to 12 plus 1 times 340 times 340.76 minus 113.5, the unearned interest, and that is equal to 4,316.83. So that's our answer for B, 4,316.83. $6.83, which of course is $6.05 more than the other payoff amount we computed with the actuarial method. This concludes section 13.3.